Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to another Adobe XD Daily Creative Challenge. My name's Howard Pinsky, Senior XD Evangelist here at Adobe, and I hope you're all doing well on this wonderful Friday. But these challenges are coming to an end, at least this round. Today's the last day in the last 2 weeks, and I see a lot of monkey business going on in the chat. This must be Andrew's doing again. I love being after Andrew. He sends all his little minions to post little pictures of monkeys. This is great. I'm going to get you back one day, Andrew. But yeah, this challenge is coming to an end. Andrew wrapped up his Illustrator challenge earlier today. The Photoshop challenge wrapped up. And today, right now, the XD challenge is wrapping up as well. But don't fret, because we do have another challenge starting on Tuesday, in just a few days after the long weekend. And if you're not in the United States and you don't have a long weekend, I hope you relax, take some time to yourself, spend time with your family, and stay safe indoors. All right, we've got a lot of monkeys and bananas in the chat. Yeah, minions. I'm going to call all of Andrew's people minions. Andrew's like Gru. I don't know where I'm going with this, but we're going to run with it. All right, I'm going to hop over to my screen. If you're new to this whole daily creative challenge thing, head on over to behance.net/challenge/XD. We also run a Photoshop challenge, an Illustrator challenge, and from time to time we also run a Premiere challenge with Jason Levine. So we have a lot of challenges going on, and it's great for people who are just getting started in any of these applications. So here's how things work. Every single day, Monday to Friday, except the first Monday, you are going to receive one of those challenges. You can join us in our Discord community chat. So if I hop over there, we have 45,000 designers in the XD Discord. That's insane. I think Photoshop also has a Discord channel. Illustrator has a Discord channel. Don't know how many people are in those ones, but XD has 45,000 designers. Crazy amount of people. You can get all the information about the daily challenges. And as Sam pointed out, today is the last day in this round, but a new series will begin on Tuesday. If you have questions, if you want to share tips and tricks, if you want to get career advice, it's a great place. Just hang out, talk about design, talk about whatever it is. There's a chat section, so if you want to chat about whatever, anything, Animal Crossing, for example, you can do that there as well. Just hop in Discord, it's a good time. You're going to watch your host every single day around 2 o'clock Pacific time, except Monday. Monday's a holiday, so we won't be here. And next week, I believe Peter Del Tondo is taking over, so he's going to be hosting for the next 2 weeks, and I'm going to be back sometime in June. Can't tell you when, but sometime. And then you can share your work. You can share it in Discord in the current challenge channel right over here, or you can share it on Behance using the keyword XD Daily Challenge. So to recap what we've done so far. So Shay is saying, why do I feel XD came out of InDesign? It definitely took some inspiration from that, but it also took some inspiration from Fireworks. Remember Fireworks? If you remember Fireworks, post a Fireworks emoji in the chat. So yeah, it took a lot inspiration from a lot of Adobe apps. Of course, many of the tools that you use on a daily basis in Adobe XD came from Illustrator and Photoshop way back in the day. So yeah, definitely, keeping in the family. So we started off the process last Tuesday, the sign-in screen. We used components. Then we used component states to design out a navigation bar. Then we designed a social feed, and we used anchor links to scroll back to the top, search and discovery using plugins, profile settings using overlays, messaging using content-aware layout. We designed a floating action button using masks and auto-animate. Animated graphics, that was fun yesterday. We designed this filled-in heart, and today we're going to be going in a different direction, and we're going to be designing a smartwatch experience. Smartwatch, that's what I meant to say. Smartwatch experience using voice triggers and maybe some auto animate and components. It's gonna be a lot of fun. So let's hop over to Adobe XD. Boop, there we go. And here's where we are. So we've got our, again, sign-in experience, our social feed, our fab button, our navigation bar, messaging, search and discovery, our overlay, and our fun animated heart. And I did just wrap up a masterclass about an hour ago where I used a very similar technique to create a cool mana bottle or a health potion using Adobe XD. It was a lot of fun. So if you missed that and you want something a little bit more advanced, if you scroll down on behance.net/live, go to the UI and UX section, and you will be able to find my latest masterclass. All right. So today we're going to be designing a watch experience. Now, in the templates that you may have downloaded on behance.net/live, that's a mistake. Not behance.net/license. behance.net/challenge/XD. We have a lot of pages. It comes with an artboard for a watch. But if you don't have that, if you're continuing from the designs that you've been working on, go ahead and grab the artboard tool over here to the left, and all the way over to the right, you've got a bunch of different artboards and templates. You can go ahead and select any one of these. I'm going to select the watch, the 44mm watch, just so we can design a little bit larger. And I'm going to zoom on in here, and we are going to get started. Now, I want to point something out because I see this quite often. Someone saying Adobe Comet. I like that name. I do want to point something out. Let me just go ahead and name this watch. When you're designing for a watch, the watch batteries are not very good. And a good rule of thumb is to design dark. Just keep everything dark. That's why if you have an Apple Watch or you have some sort of smartwatch, more often than not, I would say, the experiences that you'll find on there are dark. They have dark backgrounds, dark elements. They don't have splashes of color all over the place, because those, if you're using those applications over and over and over again for long periods of time, they will drain the battery. But if you're using dark, because they typically have OLED screens, it doesn't really use the battery as much as, bright, flashy colors. So to that level, we are going to drop the color. Just have a nice black artboard. And you can do that over here to the right within your properties inspector. Just select the fill and set it to black. Now there are a few screens that we might want to design out. And just to kind of show you how you would design for a watch versus any other device, a lot of it's very similar. You use the same tools. But one thing you can also do is if you go up to the file menu, go down to Get UI Kits, you'll be able to choose Apple iOS or Material or Windows or whatever it might be. And on the Apple website, they do have a great UI kit focused on Apple Watches. So you can get, padding and pagination, alerts, notifications, basically any element you might need to design a watch application. You can do that, and you can grab it here, bring it over to your current project, and you can get going. Many of these are components, so you can link them between your different documents, and so if you make changes on this master document, they will automatically change. They'll push the changes, and you can choose to override it or not, but they will push those changes over, which is really nice. So maybe at the top of this artboard, just to keep things simple and just let people know what application this is, we may want to just type out, oh, we can't see it. I have the same color set. So I'm going to just choose a nice blue color, and we'll go for our Sophia Pro that we've been using, and maybe let's go for a medium, right? So at the top of these applications, right about here, there's just a little bit of an indicator of what application this is. I don't think we came up with a name. No, this application is completely unnamed. There's a little fire icon. Maybe we want to use this for a splash screen of some sort. And I can just go ahead and just pop this over here, right? I can just make it a little bit larger. And maybe just to kind of keep in line with some of the UI elements, right? There's a lot of round circles on these sorts of things, kind of like this, right? Maybe what we can do is grab our ellipse, draw out an ellipse just like this, right? I'm going to move it behind. And maybe I can copy the gradient here, paste it over here. So I'm just basically copying this layer, Command and Control C. I'm going over here, and I can paste the appearance. There's also a shortcut over to the right. And this one we'll just choose white, right? Just like that. Fancy, right? Simple. This could just be a loading screen or a splash screen or whatever you might want to call it. Now this type of, I talked a little about color a little bit earlier. Having little bits of color is fine, especially if they're not always on the screen. So something like this, a loading screen, this could definitely work. So we want to duplicate this over. Just going to delete this. And now maybe it might give you an overview of the messages you may have received or your feed, for example, right? So I'm going to did I say round circles? Well, there you go. Round circles. Maybe I'll just draw out a box like this, right? And maybe I'll round out the corners just a little bit, somewhere around maybe 4 pixels. You don't want to go too crazy, because if you were to, let me just go ahead and change the color to a little bit darker, right? If you were to simply round out the corners a lot, because the space is so small, this would limit the amount of text you can actually put inside of this container. So 4 pixels, maybe 8 at the most, you probably want to go with, but that looks pretty good. And then let's go ahead and start typing out some text. So maybe you'll have the person's name. So I'll just type out Sam, because I see Sam's name in the chat. So I'll put Sam right here, right about there. And then down here, we might want the preview for the message. So I'll just go ahead and type out, what did Sam say? Sam said something in here. Where did Sam go? I lost Sam. He just said, hello, Edith. Okay, well, that's not very exciting. Hello, everyone, and welcome, right? So I'll just put that. And then maybe down below, we might want the date and time, or maybe just the date. So I'll just do 5, what day is it today? 22nd, something like that. If I'm wrong, somebody will correct me. And I'll put that about here. We've got our message preview right there. And maybe to create some hierarchy, we'll go ahead and bold Sam's name, and then these two will maybe just drop to regular, right? Great. So we've got essentially one setup, and maybe just to save some space, we'll just move these inwards, drag this up. There we go. All right. Now we can very easily use the magical repeat grid. So I can select all of these, Command and Control R, or hit the repeat grid button at the top and drag out additional cards going down, right? Simple stuff. We've done this before. Now, of course, this isn't the focus of this particular challenge. So what I want to do is actually do one more artboard that will allow us to kick off our voice trigger. So I'm going to delete this. Now, we've already created some icons that we can possibly use for this, and we created those inside of the Fab menu. So what I can do is I can just dive in here, and I've got these icons. I'm just going to copy them to my clipboard, Command and Control C, and just paste them over here, right? And we can grab this one, move it over here, move this one about here. And if you're familiar with smartwatches, they usually have pretty large icons because it is a very small screen, so it's not very easy to tap on something. So you want to make sure your icons are fairly large. If we take a look at this, it's hard to see with the black background, but those look pretty good. Now for this one down here, this may not necessarily make sense. You may not go live from your Apple Watch, right? So we may want to replace this with a microphone so we can actually talk into this application. So I'm going to hop into my plugins panel down here at the bottom, and I'm going to hop into the Icons for Design plugin and just type out mic. And this looks like a pretty good microphone right here. I'm going to position this somewhere in the center. We'll go ahead and choose a white color and then just get rid of the icon in the background. And that looks pretty good right about there, right? Perfect. So we have these 3 icons that we can use to navigate through our application or activate various elements or various features. But this one in particular, we may want to use to trigger a voice command, right? So to do that, we need to not only set up a voice trigger, but we also need to set up the screen it's going to transition to. So maybe this particular screen is a confirmation of what you may have said. So I'm going to duplicate this artboard here so I can use some of these elements. We don't need the repeat grid, so I'm going to actually pull it back just like this and ungroup the grid. And maybe this is where the message that we've spoken is going to be displayed. So let's go ahead and delete some of this. Now for this one here, instead of a point text, I may want to change it to an area text. So I can do that right over here to the right in the Properties Inspector, just press on this, and that will allow me to pull this out, right? And then pull this down. So maybe I might want to type out, hope you all have a great weekend, and I'll see you next week with more Adobe XD live streams. Bye, right? Something like that. We can even make the text a little bit bigger because we do have a touch more room. So there's the message preview. And then down below, we may want a button so we can actually post this to our account. So very quickly, we can just drag out a button like this. I'm going to round out the corners to match the aesthetic of the rest of our design, sample our pink, and then just type out the word possibly post, right? I'll make that bold because it's a nice call to action, center it, and right about there. That looks pretty good, right? So we have this screen here, which will allow us to activate the voice. And then we can lead into this screen here, which is going to allow us to preview, right? And I'm just gonna move some of these just like that, just to give a bit more breathing room. Perfect. So now you might be wondering, how do we actually create voice triggers in Adobe XD? Super simple. So we're gonna hop over to prototype mode right here at the top. We're gonna select this icon. Yeah, Cornell, auto correction in Adobe XD. It's been there for a while. And I believe under it's somewhere here, possibly. You can turn that on if you don't have it. Or I think it's actually part of your system, possibly. I don't remember. It's been in XD for quite a while, actually. So down here, we're gonna go ahead and select this icon, which has our microphone. And we're gonna drag this over to here, right? Just like that. Now, in here, in the trigger, we wanna choose voice. And here we can actually enter the command that XD is going to look out for. So just to make our lives a little bit simple, we can actually copy this text. And I'm gonna go back here, and I'm gonna paste the text inside of the command, just like that. Now, once XD has recognized that that voice command has been spoken, what's it going to do? Is it going to transition, auto-animate? What's gonna happen? In this case, because we don't typically wanna do too much animation, we may touch on a little bit of it if we have some time. We're going to do a very simple transition. And we may just want it, we have the Watch 3 artboard selected, which I should probably name these artboards, but we'll deal with that later. And we'll just do none. So it just cuts to it. Again, you don't want to go too crazy on watches, so we'll just do none, right? So we have our command set up, just like that. And I'm going to go ahead and press the play button at the top. Now you're going to notice there's this new area down here at the bottom. It's a little bit difficult to see because this is a watch application, so it's a smaller preview, but it basically says hold down the spacebar, speak your command, and then something will happen. So what we can do is just hope you all had a great weekend, and I'll see you next time with more Adobe XD live streams. Bye. I completely butchered that, but XD picked up that I said most of whatever that was, and then it transitioned to the next screen. Now, one thing we can do is we can actually have Adobe XD speak back to us. So what I can do is on this artboard here, I can go ahead and select the entire artboard, click on the blue handle over to the right, and then I can go ahead and choose time right here at the top. I'll have it kick off right away, so 0-second delay. And then instead of any of this stuff, instead of a transition or auto animate, I actually want to go for speech playback. Or if you have an audio file, you can do that as well. And I'll just choose this voice. And here we go. Here's your message. And then I'll just paste in the same message, right? So it reads it back to me. Perfect. And Usman is saying, may you make another artboard that shows recording. You can certainly do that. So it's completely up to you. In this case, just to simplify it, we just decided to go with 2 artboards. So let's play this one more time. Hope you all had a great weekend, and I'll see you next time with more Adobe XD live streams. Bye.
Here's your message. Hope you all have a great weekend, and I'll see you next with more Adobe XD live streams. Bye.
I just noticed I have a spelling error in here. But hopefully you all heard that. XD did speak back to us next week. There we go. That makes a little bit more sense. That's why I was having trouble reading that. So there we go. Fancy, right? Now we do have a few minutes left. What if we wanted to, when maybe the post button is pressed, maybe some sort of animation kicks off. Again, you want to keep it simple. You don't want to go too crazy with it. But let me just get your creative juices flowing, right? Let's go ahead and create a check mark, for example. I'm going to zoom in here, and I'm going to click, and that's an ugly check mark. Let me redo that. I'm going to click, and click. There we go. I'm going to set the border to white, increase the size, and now we have a check mark, right? Now, we may want to initially mask this check mark. So I'm going to grab a rectangle, or I can just go ahead and actually, I can grab a pen tool possibly, and I might want to use this just to kind of mask the top half of it. Doesn't have to be a perfect shape. And we'll do one more going down this way. There we go. Again, doesn't have to be perfect. So we've got these 2 shapes, and I might want to combine these because essentially we want one mask, right? So I'm going to combine these 2 shapes that we just created. So I'm going to select them both, and I'm going to press the add Boolean option right here at the top, just like that. And now we want to use this as a mask for our check mark. So I'm going to select the mask layer, and then I'm going to choose the check mark layer, which I should probably name. It's going to confuse me. And then under the object menu, mask with shape. Now, again, initially we may not want the check mark to be seen. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the various elements of the check mark. So this one over here is going to move. Let me actually make this a little bit. Yeah, I'm going to move it right about here. And this one I'm going to move over here. And maybe this one I'm going to move out a little bit further so that it takes a little bit longer to come in, right? And there we go. Now I'm going to move the whole check mark in the center, just like that. And I'm also going to move it up a little bit. So if we take a look at the check mark, just like that, let me actually make sure. Okay, let me move the check mark over here. I'm going to make sure to center this. Should have done that before, but I'm going to do that now. I'm going to move my mask. Whoops, I missed it. I'm going to move my mask, these areas here. There we go. That's much better. Okay, so we have that done now. So the big question is, how do we actually animate this once this post button is pressed? We only have a few minutes, so we're going to use components very quickly. I'm going to select all these elements. I'm going to turn this into a single component. This is going to be our default state. And now with that done, we can go ahead and create a new state, and I'm going to call this posted, and now we can make the changes that we need to do, right? So I'm going to dive in here, and maybe post will kind of drop away and fade out. Maybe this will get smaller so it's a nice circle, and I can take a look in my properties inspector to make sure it is the right size. I'll just make it 46, just like that. Make sure it's centered. And then we're going to dive into our mask that we created, and we're going to just move these elements back. So this one's going to be right here, so it covers the check mark, and there we go, right? So we have our check mark now in view. Perfect. So now we need to create, now we have both states created, we need to actually animate. It's not lined up perfectly. I might change that at some point, but for now, we're going to leave that right there. Now, what we can do is we can go into prototype mode. From the initial state, our default state, we're going to go ahead and click on the post button right here. We're going to press on the handle over to the right. And instead of a tap trigger, no, we do want a tap trigger, but we want actually auto animate, and we can choose our posted state just like that. We'll go for, let's say, ease in and out and 0.6 seconds, right? And that's all we have to do. So when we press play,
here's your message.
Oh, it's going to say the message again.
Hope you all have a great weekend, and I'll see you next week with more Adobe XD live streams.
And it does that.
Bye.
Fancy. Now, what we can also do is we can also add a sound effect. I'm actually going to just remove the speech playback just so we don't get distracted. But just like we did in, I believe it was day number 2, we can also add in audio playback. I still have that file loaded that we use on the navigation bar, so I can go ahead and do that. I'm going to assign that. And now, listen. There we go. Fancy, right? And you can get really fancy with this. If you wanted to really take this to another level and have a little bit of animation going on, you can maybe, move this down, possibly. Maybe do that. Then you can grab this button over here. Grab the button if I can get it. There we go. And the mask. Move this up, maybe to the center of the artboard. Let me fix the mask a little bit. There we go. And now we have our default state. We have our posted state. I can go ahead and press play and bloop. There we go, right? And then what we can do after that is we can basically transition to another artboard. So if we go into prototype mode, we can select our posted state, and maybe this button now leads over to this artboard. So when we tap on it, it just transitions with no animation, and it just does its thing, right? So one more time. Well, let me go back to our default state. I'm going to go to this artboard here, and let's kick off this transition using voice. Hope you all had a great weekend, and I'll see you next week with more Adobe XD live streams. Bye! There we go. It goes to, of course, we remove the speech playback, but we can add it back again if we wanted to. We can click on this, and it does its thing, and then we can go back to the social feed, right? And just like with other applications, or other designs, you can extend this if you wanted to. You can have additional ones going down your artboard, and it scrolls really nicely, right? So there we go. So that will just about wrap it up for me for these challenges. Again, Peter is going to be back next week with another set of challenges. It's going to be a lot of fun. Peter's a fantastic designer, so I'm sure he has some pretty fun stuff in store. Big thank you to everyone who has joined me and participated over the last 2 weeks. I'd love to see your work. Go ahead and post it on Behance using the keyword XD Daily Challenge. Post it in Discord. You can also tweet it at me at Pinsky. I will be watching those as well. But again, thank you everyone for joining me. I'm going to be back next week with some additional streams, including a masterclass on Friday, and we've got some pretty cool stuff in store that you're going to be hearing about pretty soon. So thanks again, everyone, and I will see you all next time.